The prairie winds drifted low that evening, weaving between the wooden ties and carrying the scent of iron and dust. They seemed to hum with the steel rails, that long metallic song stretching into the horizon. On those rails lay Deputy Elias Boone, bound in rough rope, a blindfold pressing into his bruised skin. His chest rose and fell slowly, as though each breath was borrowed. A newborn's thin cry fluttered across the fields, so fragile it might have been mistaken for the call of a night bird. But it was real, heartbreakingly real, and it pierced the silence like a plea to heaven itself. Elias had once walked this land with pride. A lawman, tall-backed and straight-eyed, sworn to shield the town from the chaos that crept in with outlaws and whiskey-drenched nights. Yet pride was the stone around his neck. He had failed once, failed when it mattered most, and though he still wore the badge, the town's faith in him had soured into pity and sharp-tongued gossip. He heard them in the saloon corners. "Boone's just a shadow now. Couldn't even protect his own." Their words clung to him like burrs, and in their laughter he carried a shame deeper than the bruises on his body. The outlaws knew it too. That was why they bound him here, not just to kill him, but to strip him bare before the land he had promised to defend. The baby wailed again, and in the stillness it seemed cruel, a sound of life tethered to death. Elias twisted against the ropes, but every movement only dug hemp deeper into flesh. He could not see the sky, but he felt its weight pressing down, a witness to his undoing. And then, a softer sound. Footsteps, too light to belong to a man, padding uncertainly on the stones. Clara May Carter was only 7, yet the world had already taught her hunger and loss. Her mother scrubbed the saloon floors for coin, her father long buried beneath a crooked cross of wood. Clara's dress was smeared with dirt, her hair tangled by prairie winds, but her eyes carried a storm of courage that did not belong to childhood. She had followed the sound of the crying, her heart pounding as she stumbled along the rails. At her side bounded Ranger, the German shepherd who had become her shadow ever since a drifter gifted him in payment of an old debt. The dog's ears pricked forward, his bark sharp, echoing into the vast fields. Clara froze when she saw them. The tied deputy, the helpless baby, the glow of a train's headlamp faint in the distance. The air tightened in her lungs. She could have turned, run to safety, left the scene to fate. But her mother's words rose within her. A soul is measured by who it runs toward, not who it runs from. Her knees buckled with fear. But still she stepped forward. She knelt beside Elias, her tiny hands brushing against the thick ropes. His breath caught at the sound of her voice, trembling but steady. "Mr. I'll help." For a moment, blindfolded and broken, he thought she might be an angel sent in his final hour. He whispered, his lips cracked and dry, guiding her toward the knots. She tugged with fingers raw and clumsy, her nails snapping against the coarse hemp. The baby cried louder, twisting beneath the blanket, and Clara's gaze flickered toward it, torn between two helpless souls. Ranger barked at the rail, teeth flashing as he gnawed at a rope that bound Elias's leg. The ground itself seemed to thrum, a distant rhythm growing stronger. The train was not far. Elias heard it too, the drumbeat of iron wheels rolling fate closer with each second. "Take the child first," Elias rasped. His voice was hoarse but firm, carrying the weight of a man who had already accepted his end. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "But if I leave you, you'll die," she whispered. His answer came soft, almost prayerful. "Better me than the little one. Go, child." Shame and pride had chained him for years, but in this moment, Elias felt something shift. This was not surrender, but sacrifice. Perhaps it was the only way left to cleanse his failures. Clara's hands shook as she gathered the newborn, swaddled tight in the blanket, her arms trembling under its weight. Ranger barked wildly now, his hackles raised. The rumble of the train swelling louder, brighter. Clara staggered back, clutching the baby while Elias lay pinned, whispering one final prayer into the earth. "If this is my time, let them live to see the dawn." The blinding headlight consumed the horizon, spilling fire across the rails as the ground shook with the promise of destruction. Clara ran, Hair flying, the infant pressed against her chest, and Ranger spun circles of fury and fear. Elias Boone remained bound to the steel, every heartbeat a drum of eternity, waiting for the weight of iron to claim him. Clara's feet pounded the earth as she ran, the newborn pressed against her chest, each breath searing her throat. The wind tore at her hair, the ground trembling as though the prairie itself was shuddering beneath the roar of iron. The whistle of the train split the night, long and merciless. She could feel the child's heartbeat racing against her own, as if two fragile sparks clung together in the vast dark. Behind her, Ranger barked furiously, his loyalty refusing to yield to distance. His gaze locked on the man still bound to the rails. The dog would not leave Elias Boone. He lunged at the ropes again, teeth grinding against hemp, growling low with determination. Elias, blindfolded still, heard the strain of teeth and the ragged rhythm of the animal's breath. A warmth spread through him, astonishment, gratitude, that even in his failure something had not abandoned him. He whispered through cracked lips, voice breaking, "Good boy. Don't give up on me now." It was not just a command. It was a confession, a plea. For years, Elias had believed himself unworthy of loyalty. But here was proof in fur and fangs that even the broken are not forsaken. Clara stumbled on the embankment and fell to her knees, the newborn wailing louder. She placed the child gently in a cradle of tall grass, whispering hurried promises that she would return. Her whole body trembled, every instinct screaming to flee, yet she turned back toward the rails. Small feet carried her against the wind, her heart thundering as loud as the engine that bore down upon them. The headlamp's glow painted her face silver, her eyes wide with defiance. She was a child, yet her stride held the weight of something ancient, something eternal. Elias felt her hands on the ropes again. His voice rose over the train's howl, ragged with urgency. "No, leave me! You've done enough!" But Clara only shook her head, hair whipping across her face, and pulled harder. She did not speak, but her silence said everything. She would not leave him to shame, not while she had breath. The knots tore at her skin, blood streaking her small fingers. Ranger growled and tugged beside her. And for a heartbeat, Elias thought he could feel their shared will, the child, the dog, and the man, all bound by something larger than rope. The train thundered closer, its light swelling until it devoured the night. The ground quaked, stones leaping like frightened hearts. Elias braced himself, knowing there was no time left. Then, in one final jerk, the rope gave way. His arms flew free. With a cry that split the air, he rolled, scooping Clara and Ranger with him, flinging them all into the dirt just as the engine screamed past. The world exploded in sound and wind. Dust and gravel slashed their faces, the force of the train a hurricane of iron and smoke. Clara clung to Elias, her body trembling against his chest. Ranger pressed close, ears pinned, eyes blazing with wild light. The train rushed on into the night, dragging with it the echo of what might have been their graves. And then there was silence. Silence so complete it rang in their ears. Elias lay on his back, chest heaving, the sky above him vast and endless. Clara's small hand was still tangled in his shirt, her cheeks streaked with tears and dirt. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her and the dog both, as if to anchor them all to life itself. His voice broke as he whispered, "You saved me, little one. You saved us all." His shame cracked then, spilling out into the dust, replaced by something he had thought long buried, hope. They rose slowly, gathering the baby from its nest of grass. Elias carried the child, his arms no longer bound but filled with new weight, new purpose. Clara walked at his side, her hand in his, Ranger pacing faithfully near. They made their way back toward town, three unlikely saviors bound together by the night. By dawn, word had spread. Folks gathered at the saloon doors and porch railings, whispering as they watched Elias return with the child and the girl. These were the same voices that once mocked him, the same eyes that measured him unworthy. Now they stared with something else, wonder, perhaps shame of their own. Elias did not lift his head to meet their gaze. He spoke quietly so only those near could hear. "It wasn't me who saved us. It was faith carried in the smallest hands." Clara's mother, weary from years of being overlooked, stood tall at that moment, clutching her daughter with pride while the crowd hushed into reverence. The town would tell the tale in many ways, of the deputy who faced the rails, of the girl and her hound who braved the storm. Some would call it fate, others grace. But Elias knew the truth, lived in the space between a child's courage and a man's surrender. And so the story closes as an old soul's whisper. We measure courage not by the strength of our fists, but by the mercy of our choices. That night on the rails, a child taught a fallen man that redemption does not thunder in with glory. It arrives quietly on small hands that refuse to let go. And if ever you doubt your worth, remember this: even the smallest act of bravery can tilt the weight of eternity.